morning. I'm Millia from the Reset Dialogues on Civilizations Association. And I just wish to welcome you to this third edition of our seminars. This year we will talk about religious pluralism, freedom and diversity, blasphemy and respect. And I'm going to introduce the inaugural address of Professor Sajid, who's the Vice Chancellor of Jamia Millia Islamia, which is a partner institution in this event together with the India Habitat Center and Seminar Magazine. And we really wish to thank all of you for coming, and we are very happy to see so many students this year. Thanks to Professor Tasneem Menai also for arranging the participation of students. And so I would just like to give the word to Professor Sajid. Thank you again.
Good morning. Peter, Nina, Akhil, Sibbal, dear delegates and participants. I welcome you all to Jamia Millia Islamia. It's a great feeling to be associated with an event of this nature on a theme which is so central to the existence of Jamia Millia Islamia, to the establishment of this great institution. And I am very pleased to deliver the inaugural address on a theme which is very pertinent and relevant in the contemporary world. There is no doubt that today there is a palpable tension between democracy and freedom of speech on the one hand, and democracy and respect for the other on the other hand. Democracy and its commitment to the development and welfare of all its being tested in several parts of the world. Democracy, as known to everybody, is a rule of the majority, but if it takes care only of the political majority, then it is bound to lead to dissatisfaction and tensions with the minorities. Democracy is not just an ideology, it is one of the best means of managing and resolving the conflicts. If more and more citizens identify themselves with the government and are involved in the governance of the society, then more and more conflicts can be prevented and managed. This is possible when there is decentralization and devolution of power. However, democracy is not just about sharing power, but also about politically accommodating various identity-based groups. The framers of the Indian Constitution attempted to reconcile pluralism with nationhood. But slowly, as things settled down after independence, identity-based conflicts started raising their heads. The state and its institutions have, however, mostly tried to manage such conflicts instead of resolving them sincerely. The existing institutions of democracy thus needs to be critically examined and reformed so that it can deliver social justice, respect the basic freedoms given to the citizens, as well as work towards creating harmonious relations between various communities. Religion has three basic dimensions: core values, symbols, and practices. The core essence of all religions is the same, but it is the symbol and the practices that creates divisions and fragmentation in the society. If religion is understood through its core values, then there will be no conflict. For the values pertain to moral uplifting and the welfare of mankind. Respect for all religions is the mainstay of democracy. Here I emphasize on the word respect because we generally tend to use the expression religious tolerance. However, the latter gives a negative connotation wherein one tries to put up with the other, while the former is a much more positive term. In order to ensure respect for all religions, the freedom cannot be absolute. The Indian Constitution values the principle of secularism. This secularism is a code of conduct and stands for certain principles. It includes honesty in terms of governance and equality. The essence of secularism is thus similar to those of other religions. If all religions are not considered equal, then one cannot be secular. Diverse identities and diversities should not be seen as a threat to the nation state or a society. Rather, they must be recognized and respected, for diversity is a fact of life. Dialogues can be means to resolve such conflicts. We can agree to disagree, and that is how we move towards agreeable solutions. Dialogue within and among religious groups are necessary. The civil society can play a critical role in conducting and facilitating such dialogues. This is where organizations like Reset.org or Dialogues on Civilizations become very important. Jamia Millia Islamia upholds the values of democracy and secularism, the pillars on which the foundation of this great institution was laid way back in 1920. Jamia therefore willingly agreed to become a partner in holding this event along with Reset.org, India Habitat Center and the seminar. I wish the event a grand success and assure the organizers of our continued support. Thank you very much.
I am Nina zu Fürstenberg and I'm the chair of Reset Dialogues on Civilizations. And as we have put this seminar this time in a way, we've given it the idea that we need more images. That's why we have been deciding to show films, to have short films in between the lectures and the discussions. And so I decided to also make a PowerPoint for my introduction, which usually would never be put on a PowerPoint. But I thought it was a good idea as to emphasize the idea of images, which we had been an input Raj Libaran had put into this year's seminars. So first of all, of course, I want to thank our host and Mr. Saeed for the opportunity to be back here again. And I'll tell you something about who we are, first of all. So Reset Dialogues is an association for dialogue and cultural understanding. We are a network of intellectual thinkers and opinion leaders and scholars who have one thing in common. We share the belief in liberal ideas, in freedom of thought, the value of education and critical thinking. And we try to find ideas and words to dismantle any kind of fanatism, may it be political, religious, or other. So one of the phrases we've sort of used in our dépliants and things is by Charles Taylor, that says each side has its own savages to be kept under control. Now, our web magazine, www.reset.org, is a tool for connecting those who want to engage in this discussion and spread the knowledge of around the world and through these leading intellectuals and on these themes. Which is, of course, not easy, but of course the web helps us to overcome these distances because our members are from any part of the world. We are a non-profit organization based in Rome, but we have no headquarters, no research institute, but nevertheless it is the web which keeps everything together. We have, a part of that, we have annual seminars as where we meet the Milan lectures, the Istanbul seminars, which will come to their 7th edition this year, the New York seminars, which is a new sequence of meetings, which is done with Columbia University, and of course the daily Venice seminars. which are at their 3rd edition. Now our academic output is published. As you can see, we had 2 publications. The 2 editions we have done have been published by Seminar, who is, as you have already probably read, our partner. Seminar magazine, and for the Istanbul seminars it's philosophy and social criticism. This is the way to spread knowledge around the world, because this is philosophy and social criticism, a magazine published by Sage, which reaches most of all English-speaking libraries in the world. Now, to our partners here. I want to thank all our Indian partners and friends. Jamia Millia, as we know, is not just some university, but an important Islamic institution known for its academic quality and its openness. Or maybe better, as it's been written over the years, is progressive reputation. We started our collaboration 2 years ago with Najib Jung. I want to, in this occasion, congratulate him to his new position, and I thank as well, which I already did, to Mr. Zaid. We are thankful to continue, and next year's edition will be in Venice once again, and then the year after in Delhi. So it's a 2-year rhythm in which we come back here, or our Indian friends and partners and intellectuals come to Venice. Of course, Malvika and Tejbir Singh and Mr. Sethi need to be thanked from the Seminars magazine. They are very fundamental partners for us. And Mr. Libahan and the Habitat Center. I want to mention the precious help also of Rajiv Bhagava, who will be with us this afternoon and talk, and of course a former Italian ambassador to India, who is a co-founder of Reset and a very valuable friend and collaborator on all these projects, Roberto Toscano. Going back to the visual, our sign here, which we use, stands for the idea of many colors, pluralism and freedom, and the variety of thoughts, the democratic need to protect differences. And going and searching for an answer, I found a phrase by Gandhi, which says, "For me, the different religions are beautiful, like beautiful flowers from the same garden, or they are branches of the same majestic tree." So I chose this image, which is, in a way, again repeats the many colors, the many flowers, the many. And here I want to state writing from Ramin Jambeglu, an Iranian Canadian. I wrote here Resetian, member of Reset Dialogues. From the beginning on, who wrote in his book Gandhian Moment. He came from Iran and then lived for a certain time here in Delhi after he had to leave his country, that Gandhi had pluralism in his bones. He never made the mistake of rejecting or underestimating other traditions of thought in his approach to truth and his stress on nonviolence. Why do I name Gandhi here? Because, of course, I want to somehow point out the reason why we came all the way to India and talked to Indians and worked together with Indians. Because there is a strong root. There is maybe the strongest root that can be found. And we can go back up to Ashoka's edicts. Sorry for the accents. Where the pluralistic ideals already can be found. So there's much for us to learn here, and our readers, from India, from your successes and your mistakes. And in today's radicalizing and stressed narrowing world, this knowledge is value, pure value. That is why we come to India. Of course, there is a lot of critics from inside. For instance, there is the last book of Amartya Sen, who criticizes that there is, yes, this root of pluralism, but there is maybe not enough engagement in discussing and going into discussing these questions. So not just tolerance, but something it would need, then that is a very democratic process to engage and not laissez is the right word. In German we have a great word for that. It's called zusammenraufen. It means you mingle, you fight each other, but it's not a malicious fight, it's a positive fight. And a fighting, let's say, a discussing together, a very animated discussing together, because Sen in this book was saying, because I'm going afterwards to the Rushdie case, which has been in Europe a very big case, which started the whole discussion, has not been discussed enough in India. It was just accepted that the Satanic Verses is not a book to be published and shown. But the reasons why, or the dogmatic process, why this whole process has not been discussed, is one of these reasons which he criticizes. So here to our theme, I'm just repeating basically what we've written already. We will discuss the topic of blasphemy, cultural religious pluralism, meaning of irreverence and provocation in traditional societies, the ethics of respect for the other, the role of democracies, and the mediation between freedom of expression and respect of the others. And definitely democracy has a very important part in that. Particular attention will be paid to the media and their role in portraying cultural and religious differences, encouraging or preventing the development of peaceful coexistence and the acceptance of differences in conditions of cultural and religious ethnic pluralism. Here just a list of the speakers, which I'm not going to read out again, and which you know. And here just a few words to Europe, because of course we come here, and that already last time, to confront European developments or situations to the Indian one. And Europe has had a very different tradition, a much less pluralistic tradition. Opposite, we had terribly bloody religious wars and later ideological wars throughout our history. But though this has in some way paved today the way for a very profound implementation of liberal ideas and a pluralism making. It is hard. It is still very difficult in Europe, but there is a strong engagement in that. To come to the laws, most European states overturned laws that punish a person if he or she thinks or believes differently. So definitely but they also protect religious dignity. Then there is, but blasphemy, on the other hand, is still punishable by death in some countries, as most of you probably know, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, and even in 6 United US states. Even if for the last years, for the last decades, this has not been applied in the United States. While in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, yes. Now, some Muslim immigrants in Europe called for punishments again after the blasphemy, for blasphemy over the 88-89 so-called Rushdie affair, and the 2005 Mohammed cartoon crisis. These two, there have been many other crises or confrontations in the last decade on these questions, but these, let's say, are the two, in Europe, the two main discussions that have dominated the press and the cultural discussion. Anyway, the discrepancy between freedom of speech and respect for the other's beliefs need to still be very much rediscussed. Now, I will, of course, it is always maybe unfair to just show one book, but I'm showing the book of the one professor that has made the longest way, all the way from America to come with us, and also because her subject is so central to this theme. And a cover of this book, it's called the Cartoons That Shook the World by Jette Clausen, who will be one of the speakers this morning. And she's worked on this discrepancy between freedom of speech and respect for the other. And the Yale University Press, when they published this book, they had a very big problem between publishing the images of this book that led to the discussion, to the problem, or to leave them out. And in the end, they did decide to leave them out, and I'm sure she's going to tell us later about more why and how and what is about this. So now, before we start talking, we'll show one of the small films we found, which is a small, very artistic film. This film is called Kaz Moami, I don't know if I say it right, by Marinella Setti, and the subtitle of the video is "The Process by which a flower opens before it is pollinated," which states a biological process of diversity. So Nicola, please give us the film, and then we will start.
Sit down, come on. Neon lights on, and this is fires. I got just oh. Be all right. I can get
has just left the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, right? And prior to this, he was at the Center for the Study of Developing Societies in New Delhi, a senior fellow and co-director of the Lokniti program on comparative democracy. Earlier, he was professor of political sciences in Goa University, and among his recent books, we find State of Democracy in South Asia, and I don't read all, you can probably see that, all the co-authors he has worked with. And the second book is Indian Youth in a Transforming World, Attitudes and Perspectives, as well as Speaking of Gandhi's Death. So these are the three books I have signed here. Please, the floor to Peter de Souza.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back again with the Venice-Delhi seminar group, and I'm thankful to Nina, to Giancarlo, to Nicola for inviting me here and for making me part of this ongoing dialogue of civilizations. It's difficult to speak after that wonderful film, but I'll go straight to the theme that I want to reflect on today, which is one aspect of the larger debate on freedom of expression, and which is on the question of offensive expression. And I want to suggest that India, in its 67 years or 63 years after the adoption of the Constitution, has still to ethically confront this question. And the question is this, if I may state it somewhat forcefully and directly: how should a constitutional democracy respond to a claim made by one of its groups, one of its citizen groups, that it is deeply offended by some expression, whether this is a book or a film or a play or a cartoon or a song or an article or a picture, and this has been happening over the last 67 years. How should a constitutional democracy respond to such a claim that it is deeply offended, and as a result of that statement that it is deeply offended, the claim is that the book or the creative expression should be banned, one, and two, that the creator should be prosecuted. This is the claim. And I want to suggest that Indian democracy has not really worked out a detailed, comprehensive, ethical position on this. What it has done is responded pragmatically. Whenever such a claim has been made, Indian democracy has somehow tried to deal with it politically, has tried to deal with it as a law and order problem, has tried to deal with it as a question of that the next big issue will come up 10 days down the line, so we can afford to sort of ignore it and let it be. And I think this is not what a young republic and an evolving democratic constitutional order must do, because these constitute occasions when we need to take a position on a foundational issue. I think Europe is facing a similar crisis, and through taking that position, we can then contribute to the development of a normative political culture. Now, if you look at the history of the last 67 years, you will see several cases of censorship or banning. And I'm going to just name a few high-profile ones, and I'm going to go right up to 1954, 4 years after the Constitution was adopted, when the debate about an offensive book or offensive article began. And you will see from this list, and it's a long list, but I'm only just taking a few examples. It covers religion, it covers cultural identity, it covers different media, film, book, paintings, plays, etc. 1954, there was a book published by somebody called Aubrey Menon called The Ramayana Retold. He retold the story of the Ramayana. And conservative Hindu groups got most offended, and they said, this book should be banned. 1987, Ambedkar's book, and this is a book written earlier. It was published by the Maharashtra government called The Riddles in Hinduism. And again, conservative Hindu group said this book should be banned. This is a book published by the government of Maharashtra. The book was banned. Till the Dalit community responded and said, the banning offends us. So the book was republished. 1988, we know the case of the Satanic Verses. And incidentally, the Satanic Verses was not banned. The Satanic Verses, the book, and this is useful to keep in mind, was not imported under Section 11 of the Customs Act. So the book was not allowed to be brought into India, again because of protests, but it wasn't banned. So the invocations of ban were not used. It was just used that it was an item to be not permitted to be imported under Section 11 of the Customs Act. And this took place 3 months before the fatwa. So you must remember that the debate that took place in India was a debate that took place before it became a global debate. So there was no death threat at that time. There was just, should a book be published, should a book not be published? 1988 Satanic Verses, and when the government of India did not prescribe it, then the Christians of India said, oh, how can you show Martin Scorsese's film The Last Temptation of Christ? So in some states, Christian-dominated states of India, the film was banned. Not all India, but in some states of India. 1996, the M.F. Hussain controversy, when M.F. Hussein's, for the first time, one magazine, I'll come to that controversy later, created a huge furore, and the rest I will discuss in more detail. 1998, a play. Now I'm giving you examples to show different groups. This is a play called Me Nathuram Godse Bolte. This is a Marathi play staged in Bombay, and it's celebrating the killer of Gandhi. So this was found to be offensive. So Gandhians protested and said, how can we have such a play? And the play was banned. 2000, a film by an eminent filmmaker Deepa Mehta titled Water, which was about to be shot in Banaras, which was about the widows of Varanasi, was banned because, not allowed to be shot because they said, no, this is part of global intrigue, and it was supposed to be portraying India's holy sites in a bad light. So the film was shot in some other part of India. It was not allowed to be shot. 2004, Maharashtra. Now we've moved into cultural issues. James Lane's book Hindu King in Islamic India was banned by the Maharashtra government. And very interestingly, not only was the book banned, but the library in which he did his research, which is the Bhandarkar Oriental Institute. And it's important to remember that the Bhandarkar Oriental Institute was an institute that was created to actually preserve documents, valuable documents of Indian culture. And this was vandalized by people saying this is portraying Indian culture, the book is portraying Indian culture in a bad light. So you have the strange thing that the institute that is specially set up and has some of the most valuable documents of Indian culture is vandalized because James Lane used the resources over there. Then in Mumbai University, a book in the English department, part of the syllabus, Such a Long Journey by Rohinton Mistry, is banned. It's been taken out of the syllabus. And most recently, 2011, in the Delhi University. So now it's entering our university system. The Delhi University, A.K. Ramanujan, the classic 300 Ramayans, is taken out of the syllabus and defended by the academic council. So it's not just people on the street who are protesting, but even people within universities. So now, if this is so we seem to have created a habit of banning, and if this is the situation, then we must ask the question: why does a democracy succumb to such censorship? Why do we take the pragmatic view and not the philosophical, normative, ethical view that a constitutional order requires? And it's paradoxical because democracy has become deeper. As democracy has become deeper, it's not a deficit of democracy. At one level, democracy is becoming deeper. New groups are entering the public sphere. New groups are acquiring voice. New groups are demanding that their claims be heard. And these claims could be religious or cultural. So as democracy deepens, a new politics of outbidding emerges. So groups begin to agitate, and they agitate by claiming group identity. So a politics of outbidding emerges, and that outbidding then takes the form of protest against some product of creative expression. So that's one possible process that is underway, the politics of outbidding. The second process is our institutions have become routinized, and I've increasingly come to reflect on this. Our institutions have become habitual. They do not seem to have, they seem to have lost their sense of mission. And it's important to say this, because if you begin to look at the discussions of the Indian Constituent Assembly, there was a sense of mission. When people were crafting the architecture of the new India, they were debating every point. They were debating the larger picture, and they were also debating the smaller issues of the ethics of that institution. There was a deep sense of what should this new republic contain. Today, this has become routinized. Nobody is asking these foundations. Very few people are asking. And that is why I think the dialogue you set into motion is so important. So institutions has stopped, particularly key institutions, whether it's the press or whether it's universities or whether it's the courts, whether it's the parliament, have stopped seeing themselves as sentinels of freedom. And added to that is the fact that we've lost our visionary leadership. Now again, I don't want to sound like there was some golden age, and but I think the importance of leadership is important. And in recent months, I've been looking at the selected works of the first Prime Minister, and you can see there in those debates, letters to chief ministers, statements in Parliament, correspondence with other world leaders. There's a continuous engagement with public morality. And that engagement with public morality seems to have been lost. We seem to have, as I said, become routinized. We don't think we have to continuously engage in our public realm in this kind of debate. That what should our public, how should we continuously recalibrate the nation? How should we recalibrate our institutions? And therefore the question of offensive expression is treated as a law and order problem. Now offensive expression raises in India one fundamental question. What is the threshold? How much offensive expression should you be able to live with? Is there a threshold point beyond which the expression becomes unacceptable? Now, it's not that in Europe, for example, there's an absolute position on this, that you can live with a huge amount of offensive expression. I mean, there are rules that prescribe. For example, in England, you cannot publish things which have to do with the royal family, because you somehow entered into a contract. So contract becomes more important than freedom of expression. In I think the Netherlands, if I'm not wrong, you cannot enter the country with a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf. Can you?
It's correct.
In France. There's this big debate about genocide denial, and if you are a denier, then so there are constraints. I mean, I want to just make the point that every society has to ask itself the question: what is the threshold point at which we will not allow of expression? And of course, in all societies, there is a standard prescription of images of pedophilia, of violence against women, etc. So this is a debate a society must have. That's the point I want to raise. And there is no absolute position on absolute expression of freedom. But a society must engage with its own threshold point. So now in India, the question is far more complex, because we are a plural society, because every group is claiming that we are offended. I gave you a potted history of this. So can we accept the kind of position that I think Europe is struggling with? And the dominant position in Europe, in my understanding, is an undifferentiated argument that yes, we've got to live with some degree of offense, that everybody better learn to live with some degree of offense. And I think that's the ultimate position. All society should move towards that. But there are in-between stages. And therefore, the question is, should a society like India at this point of time have a differentiated response? I'm not giving you an answer to this. I've written it in the issue, the special issue of seminar that you published, the last one, where I've made an argument for a differentiated response. But the question is, is our response about offense, are we going to be more sensitive to offensive expression when it is in the domain of religion, the domain of the sacred, or is it all domains of worth? So on religion, yes, we will be more careful, but when it comes down to culture, when it comes down to identity, we can be more forthright. But then the Dalit, as you know, the cartoon controversy that took place in the NCERT textbooks in India, the Dalits say, no, that cartoon was offensive. Now it has nothing to do with religion, it has to do with the portrayal of Ambedkar, but it becomes a controversy. So how long should we have a differentiated response before we can move to an undifferentiated objective? This is the moral question that we have to ask. And then, of course, the second order questions of what procedures, how do we decide? What are the procedures we set into motion? Suppose somebody says, I'm offended. Who makes that decision that, yes, this is a valid offense? I mean, do you have to run straight to this constitutional court? Or should we have, like, for films, you have a censor board. In India, we have a censor board which says these aspects of a film are not permitted because they show too much violence, or there's too much pornography, or there's too much. So should we create new constitutional bodies to which these sort of issues get sent? We know these issues are going to come up. We know that they're going to be a part of our politics. We know that as a society deepens, as democracy deepens, particularly a plural society, there are going to be such claims being made. And these claims are serious. I mean, a secularist may think, oh, this is such a trivial case when somebody who's conservative religious makes it. But for that person, it's very serious. Or a non-Dalit may think that Dalit's objections are not serious, but to a Dalit, it's very important. So I think, how do we deal with these claims, assuming that every claim has a certain validity, if it may have a political origin? And how do we then arrive at a kind of tentative constitutional position? Should we create special institutions? Now, so now let's move to the domain of art, and I'm going to specifically talk of the M.F. Hussain case, and Akhil here fought the case and won in the Delhi High Court. But I think it's very useful for us to take that case because in a way it shows that the Indian Republic failed. I mean, I'm giving you my conclusion even before I will develop the case, but it shows that the Indian Republic did not take its what I would call the Lady Chatterley lover moment, a chance to define what constitutes acceptable art and what does not constitute acceptable. It took the pragmatic the response, and I'll tell you why. Now, when this M.F. Hussain case was debated, there was a large debate, and I'm going to go through 3 or 4 statements made by art historians, by political philosophers, by anthropologists on the M.F. Hussain case. And there's a statement made by Veena Das, one of our most eminent scholars, who, when commenting on that, made a statement. I'm sure the statement was not, I mean, I've pulled it out of context, so but the fact that it could be formulated like this, I think, points to the debate. He says, both sides must come to acknowledge the capacity of art to hurt. Now, it's a very innocuous statement in the larger essay, but it's a statement that sort of, when I read it, jumped out of the page. And I thought I must reflect on this. What is the statement saying? Both sides must acknowledge the capacity of art to hurt. Is it saying that when art moves out of the gallery, when art moves out of the connoisseurs or the art critics' comment and into the street, when it has to share space with the politics of Indian democracy, then the position changes. When the politician on the street says, I also want to take a position on art, then does the art critic's position disappear? Because now the street is deciding this is good art, this is not good art, this is acceptable. Because the art critic will make a very sophisticated argument about symbols or color or tradition of art. And suddenly somebody else is saying, I also want to take a position of art. Is that statement inviting us to engage with this question? Because now once it enters the street, the possibility for veto emerges, that this is unacceptable art. Or is it an invitation for the art historian or for the artist to exercise self-censorship? If both sides must acknowledge the capacity of art to hurt, Is it saying that the artist must also keep in mind that when I'm producing my art, I could be offensive? And I mean, should artists carry that burden of prudence? That when I'm completely caught up with my muse, and I'm drawing or painting or writing a book or producing a picture, say, oh yeah, I will not do this because that's not how creative, at least to my understanding. Artists may be pragmatic, okay, this will be useful for the market, or this will be, I mean, there is a pragmatism which enters the production process, but should there be prudence which enters the production process as well? I don't know, but this is a question we must ask. And then what happens to art movements like transgressive art, which deliberately want to shock? The whole strategy of that is to shock so that to offend, not just shock, to offend so that you can actually expand the boundaries of human perception. And now let's come down to the M.F. Hussain case. And I want to present the case in two phases. And I said, with apologies to Akhil, because Akhil knows this case more than most of us, so with his indulgence, I'll present the case. M.F. Hussain, 1947, was part of one of the great art movements of India, the progressive artist group from Bombay, with people like Souza and others. They saw themselves as different, I think, from the Bengal school, and experimenting with a whole set of new forms. 1947, and because of the art that he was producing, he was given every major Indian award. The Republic honored him like no other person. 1955, he got the first national recognition. He got a Padma Shri. 1973, he got the next highest, Padma Bhushan. 1991, he got the highest, Padma Vibhushan. 1986, he was nominated to the Rajya Sabha. There are only 12 positions in the Rajya Sabha where people of high eminence are nominated, and normally these are intellectuals, artists, intellectuals, people who can perform the role of enlightened elders. He was nominated to the Rajya Sabha. 2008, he was given the very prestigious Raja Ravi Verma Award by the government of Kerala. 1952, he was invited so not only does he have great national recognition, but he has international recognition. 1952, he's invited by Zurich to hold a first solo exhibition in Zurich. I'm again taking things just at random. 1971, he's invited to actually exhibit with Picasso in the Sao Paulo Biennial. He in fact come to be regarded as the Indian Picasso. 2006-07, he's got an individual exhibition in the Peabody Essex Museum. 2008, his art sells in the Christie's auction in New York for $1.8 million, one of his paintings. So, he's arrived. He's not only feted by the country, he's feted by the world. He's recognized, individual exhibitions, he's invited all over the world. He's seen as somebody who's able to give Indian civilization a new direction. Then comes 1996. 1996, one magazine, Vichar Mimamsa, decides that this man is offending in Hindu sensibilities, and takes all these paintings and creates a campaign. Now, I want to mention this because if you look at the paintings just as they are, they seem interesting. And if you look at it within the tradition of Indian art history, that's always happened. The great Indian epics have always been reinterpreted. You're always getting, I mean, Iravati Karve's readings on the Mahabharata are fantastic. She makes each of the important Mahabharata characters very contemporary. So societies do that. You go to a theater in say London, and you can see Sophocles being made very contemporary, or Euripides being made very contemporary. So Hussain should be seen as part of that tradition, but no. This campaign, what does it do? It takes his paintings and it gives a commentary along these paintings. And the commentaries are inflammatory. I'm telling you why, because I did an experiment in a seminar. I only showed the paintings and asked people to record their feelings when they saw the paintings. It was a mixed audience. And then I showed the same paintings with the comments made by this newspaper. And everybody was incensed. The same paintings seemed offensive, the same paintings, the first time around, which were quite benign and creative. The second time with the campaign was seen as offensive, was seen as violative, was seen as, gosh, how can you show the goddesses in these postures? So he was seen as a Muslim artist who transgressed. Suddenly, the progressive artist was now being depicted as a Muslim artist. And Akhil, I think, fought his case and won. In fact, in a landmark judgment in 1998, the Delhi High Court set aside the case, one of the cases, and I think there's a classic conclusion of the judge, I think Justice Call, saying that the artist must be allowed to perform his art. Do I have 5 more minutes? Okay. There are many cases in courts all over, and my argument is that the Indian state and the Indian Supreme Court did not protect him. So he had to go. In 2006, he goes into exile. This is the Indian Pablo Picasso. Like Guernica, he goes into exile, and he wants to come to India. He thinks of he's the barefoot artist who wanted to be in touch with the soil. He dreams of his sister's food. And he dies in exile in London. And the Indian Republic has to now live with this fact, that in his 95, the artist, at the age of 95, he's in exile and he dies. Now, why is this case very important for us, particularly in the context of the dialogues? Why is this case so important for us? Why? It may seem one artist, let's be pragmatic, 95, he's dead and he's gone. And Indian democracy has moved on. Nobody talks about it anymore. But it's important because law performs a civilizing mission. Because law, as Barbara Metcalf and David Gilmartin say, has the job of taking society, law and art, not just law, and art to a new level, a new emancipatory level. That is why it's important for us to be tolerant towards art. Because if art takes us to a new emancipatory level through new perception, so does law. Law must say, this is what we must accept. This is not offensive. Let us live with it. Let us engage with it. Let us debate it. But art tried to do that. Hussein's art tried to do that. But the Indian state failed to protect that art. I mean, it was really, the day he died was such a tragic day in the history of our republic, that a 95-year-old artist who was dying to come back had to renounce his citizenship, take Qatari citizenship, and die in exile. Secondly, in this whole debate, as people become intolerant, art gets presented as Muslim art. So he's seen as a Muslim artist who's transgressed. I mean, do we say Tagore is a Hindu artist? Or Sousa is a Christian artist? I mean, we don't do that. So, giving a prefix to an artist does huge. What does it mean? And in India, this is something we must debate. We call somebody a Dalit president. We call somebody a Parsi solicitor general, or so and so is a Christian vice chancellor. I mean, this I think is deeply offensive. And finally, therefore, through this whole process, we are losing our capacity to deal with political religion. So political Islam, we are not able to fight. Political Hinduism, we are not able to fight. And in that process, this larger space in which, the garden of diversity becomes monocultural. The garden of diversity begins to lose the diversity of species. And why is this important in India, and perhaps as important in Europe, but particularly important in India, the diversity of species? If I may borrow from your presentation, India has the largest repository of intangible cultural heritage, to use a UNESCO, the largest repository of folk, of oral, of language, of art forms, of what is called intangible cultural heritage. And once you get into political religion, political Islam, political Hinduism, this repository is valuable for the survival of humanity. It's not just, we just don't protect it because it's there. We protect it because it is an expression of the diversity of human creativity. And that is reduced as the censors begin to enter the field. And that is the question we have to. And finally, I'll just conclude, and therefore I think the Indian state has, particularly its courts, have failed us. And I say this because the courts are today in a phase of judicial activism. They are an activist court. They take positions on environment, they take positions on corruption, they take suo moto. You don't have to appeal to the court. They read it in the newspaper and they immediately pick it up. But they didn't take up the highest court. The Delhi High Court, yes, but the highest court should have taken up the Hussain case, and it did not. So he had to die in exile, and that was a sad thing. Thank you.